And just so everyone knows, I'll be recording this session for folks who weren't able to attend today. So. All right, well, we can just get started maybe, and then people will trickle in kind of as we're doing introductions. So the first question, and we're just gonna do this popcorn style, so you can kind of just speak when you feel moved to speak, and then pass the mic virtually. And well, I'll have 3 questions prepared, though we'll save time at the end, as I mentioned, for other questions too. And I'll pop the question in the chat. So whoever wants to start off this panel, feel free. Though the first question we have for you, just to kind of get to know you and your work and what you've done this year. Please tell us about your community engagement efforts and how they have shaped your experience of the pandemic.
Hello, my name is Filip, and so this year I have mostly been working with the Sierra Club, and also last year, but while last year we have been working on getting Colorado Springs utilities to decarbonize much earlier, this year we have been mostly working on making sure that these kind of climate promises are going to be fulfilled. So we have been trying to push this new bill. It's called SB 200, that is basically going to take climate promises and lock them into legislature to make sure that we see action on climate change happening. And this work has been, I think, a lot of fun in many ways, even though we had to ask many people to send emails, to call our representatives, which could be tedious very often, but I think the reward is very big, even though it's, so during the pandemic time, I feel like it's hard to organize because we spend so much time online. And then we would sometimes go to these hearing testimonies that would take 8 hours instead of 2 hours. And the whole time you have been waiting to speak and you don't know when you're going to speak because it's really not made very nicely for public input. But then when you hear that something you're working on, it has passed another committee and is getting closer and closer to actually get enacted, it's just a very encouraging feeling. So even though it's been sometimes quite taxing to be so much in this online world, I feel like it has been very motivating to work on these issues. And for example, this Tuesday, we went to visit our Senator Pete Lee, and there was a lot of fun in the Capitol, and he showed us around and was very excited. And Teddy is smiling, so I'm passing it over to Teddy, who said hi to him, and Senator Pete Lee was very happy about that.
Okay, hi, I'm Teddy. This May, I'll graduate from CC from the second time I went to CC daycare. And I've been involved in the community in a number of ways since. But in the last year, I've probably learned more about my hometown than I have in my previous 20 years. Last May, I assumed a position with a nonprofit called Together for Colorado Springs as the director of communications. And during that time, we were leading an effort to legalize retail cannabis in Colorado Springs. As you all are probably aware, retail cannabis is legal in Manitou and Pueblo and about 176 other municipalities in Colorado, but not in Colorado Springs. So it kind of came to this pinnacle moment in front of City Council where we're leading this community coalition. And it was myself debating a number of city leaders, including Mayor John Suthers, regarding retail cannabis. And after we failed that movement, I still decided to get involved in local politics and local governance. I recently just served as a campaign manager for City Council Richard Scorman's re-election campaign, and he won with the most amount of votes of anyone else in the city, which was very, very exciting. And I also assumed the role as the director of communications for Together for Colorado Springs. So I was working on about a total of about 5 campaigns throughout the city, and 3 out of the 5 that we were working on eventually prevailed and are now our city councilors and can now listen to Filip kind of critique them on how they're doing on combating climate change. And this last year has really been impactful. Not only have I learned a lot about the city and geographically, but also a lot about the inside baseball and a lot of the inside baseball of how little there is of of young leaders and what it means to be a young leader. There's a dearth when it comes to, I think, people who are under 30 and are involved in local politics. And I think it just solidified the notion that if you want to get involved, you can. And if you want to work really hard, you can get to just about any single room in Colorado Springs, or for that matter, maybe up at the Capitol, talking to someone like Senator Pete Lee. If you just put your mind to it, make the right connections, and just put your head down, and don't act like you're 21, act like you're 35 or 40. So that's a little bit of my work. I will pass it off to Matt.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew. I'm currently the president of Best Buddies, which is a nationwide, I think, international organization, and I run the chapter here at Colorado College. And we work with students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the Colorado Springs area. And I also help out with the Higher Visions for Education class that CC runs for students with IDDs around Colorado Springs. And yeah, this year has been very interesting. I mean, most of our work has been over Zoom because of the pandemic. And I think if anything, this year has shown me how important these connections that we build as a club, both for the students with IDDs and the students from CC who we pair up with them, that those connections, especially in a time where everybody's so separated, are that much more important, and how difficult the pandemic has been, especially for the community of people with disabilities. And so, yeah, it's been a cool year working with everybody, and yeah, I guess that's all I have to say. I'll pass it on to Hannah.
Hi, my name's Hannah. I'm a junior, she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm one of the co-founders and lead organizers of Colorado College Mutual Aid, which would not have, I think that it has an enormous place at Colorado College regardless of the pandemic, but we likely wouldn't have been as incentivized to start it if we had not been empowered by the actions of other colleges made in starting mutual aid funds, and particularly aggravated by the institutional slowness in distributing very necessary CARES Act funding. So this year we made an application, and with the advice of some Colorado College professors, and wrote a formula for redistribution, and have since fundraised $139,000 from over 700 individual donors and redistributed that to over 200 students, and have boosted current student giving by over 300%, which is pretty exciting, as we did not know that any of that would be possible going in. So I'm extremely proud of the way that the school has come together through. I'm proud of the work that the organizers have done to create this framework to enable this, and then proud of the way that individuals in the school have actually supported and asked their parents to support, and their recent alums. And I think, given that CC has the highest average parent income of any college in the country, and the #1 request is for groceries, I am very excited that this fund exists. And I hope it's sort of one, it doesn't solve the problem of institutional inequity, but it definitely will hopefully minimize the impact that not having access to money for rent or groceries or good Wi-Fi to take your classes with has had on students during the pandemic and moving forward. So I am excited to see the role that mutual aid will play over the course of the next few years and after I graduate. And I'll popcorn to Misbah, who's one of my other co-organizers.
Yeah, so I think Hannah covered most of it, but hello, hi, I'm Misbah, feminist and gender studies major, she, they pronouns, and I kind of just wanted to emphasize how, though, like, yes, that mutual aid is being rallied behind so much and so nicely, and it's very nice. But I think the thing is, and kind of our mission and why we are going to be sustained for a really long time, is the fact that we haven't been able to fund 50% of our requests ever. And even given that large amount, that kind of raises a couple questions and raises a couple alarms. And I feel like that's something that we will work on, and that kind of also talks about at large about the racial wealth gap in the United States in general, because a lot of these people are like, I'm the only person that looks at all of these people's names and IDs and knows who they are, and a lot of them are POC. Like, you can look at the stats on our Instagram, and kind of just look at how many of those people are POC, they're LGBTQ, they're generally marginalized in some form or the other. And it does showcase a greater conversation that we could have as CC Mutual Aid and host those conversations. And I feel like that's something that'll be also incredible for CC in deciding what type of education and what type of institution we want to be. And I'll forward it to Mary.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Mary, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. And yeah, I guess my involvement at CC is that this year I was leading the Student Organization for Sexual Safety's work, and we were able to have like 2 to 3 meetings a block, which was great online, and we're able to like keep up engagement in that way. And we had a lot of events. We hosted like TED Sex events where we educated people about sexual education, trivia events to raise money. We tabled for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We made a zine, and we created a coalition with START to have more discussions about sexual safety. But overall, I feel like our club has shifted a lot into thinking about communal healing and transformative and restorative justice like ways. And so we talk a lot about that in Abolition for Survivors, which is really cool and exciting, and has been one of my favorite parts this year. And then additionally, I also created and now run a survivors only like support group space where survivors and victims of sexual assault or harassment or violence can come and meet, and we can engage in communal healing together, which has just like been such an amazing space this year. And I'm not sure if that space existed before I was a student here, but it wasn't there my freshman year, and I'm a sophomore now. And yeah, that's just been such an important part of my year. And I've been able to like engage with so many different student survivors, and we have just like learned a lot from each other and have been able to like grow and heal. And yeah, I'm just really excited about where that's going to go as well. But yeah, those were my 2 main involvements. And who hasn't been popcorn to yet? Anna, do you want to speak? Anna,
I think that's everyone. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing though. I definitely didn't know about all of the work that all of you were doing. So thank you. It's really, inspiring to hear about your stories and like where you're taking this work to and how it will evolve in coming years and how more people get involved in politics and all of that. The second question, just to keep things moving, I'll pop it in the chat. But we'd really love to know, in addition, kind of just what your work has looked like this year, how your engagement has been impactful for the community and the people you've engaged with, but also for you as a human being, as a person. So that's our next question, and feel free to jump in if you're ready to answer that one.
Hello again. So I think for my case, where we try to reach out to decision makers and ask them to do something that we care about as well, it's really hard to quantify exactly how big of an impact that has been done through that kind of way. But I would just like to say and use this as an opportunity to actually share our stories and our reasons for why we care about different issues with our representatives and with the decision makers of many different issues and bills and anything else, because they really listen. Like, I was really surprised so many times with this work, how often they would ask to hear from people's stories, much more than numbers or some new research, which I think is kind of interesting. they really like to hear from us and from people, from their constituents and from anybody. For example, last year when we were working on closing down the Martin Drake power plant earlier than was planned, we would bring a doctor from Denver who would come and speak about how dangerous it is to have high ozone levels, like ground ozone levels in the city, and nobody would be really listening as much. And then the next week we would bring somebody who lives by the power plant and has asthma, and how difficult it is for him to, just do his kind of daily life. And it was just really incredible to see how much more engaging the conversation was. So what I'm trying to say is, I think it's been impactful in a way that we can't really quantify, but I really hope that it has made some kind of change, and let's see how far we get with that current bill. And I really encourage all of you to reach out to anybody and tell them about an issue you care about. And I'll just leave it open. Whoever wants to jump in, feel free.
I'll just jump in. I think it's very kind of simplified to say how like the impact that we have had is the money that we have redistributed, but I feel like it's way greater than that. And I feel like personally it's been a lot more than that for me, because I think having such a sustained way that is honestly a bit anti-capitalist in nature to be at a PWI and be rallied and supported, and kind of shifted the attitude that CC really has with its students, with its alumni, with literally everybody else that CC interacts with. And changing that narrative is really something that I feel like is another bigger impact that we've had throughout the year. And Hannah, feel free to jump in. And for me personally, I think just knowing all of these people and like being able to personally help them somehow with my effort and like seeing like real results has really helped me, as cliche as that sounds. But also I think personally it's also helped me find a community of people that are like-minded, and like I would have never met Hannah otherwise probably. And like she's like my right-hand man. Like I love her to death, and I feel like that would not have happened unless mutual aid was really a thing. And I feel like also Martrice is right there, but having that influence from Cal there too, I think that created that community that is present. And I feel like yeah, just finding community of people that do love to do this work and are like-minded is really something that I got out of it, even during a pandemic.
So you're gonna make me cry. But yeah, just to piggyback off of a previous point, sorry to use poli-sci lingo, I am particularly proud of the recurring donation option that we have set up, because that lets people sign up and then automatically be charged however much they choose to be, either monthly or bi-monthly. And that really sets up a practice of redistribution rather than just like a one-time check the box and then feel better about yourself type of scenario. So I just want to toss that out there, so that that's something that I'm proud of, and I hope that this school continues to use. We have like 60 people signed up for monthly donations. We also mail you a sticker if you do. So tell your friends, tell your mama. That's something that I think is a very crucial part of making this a sustained effort and a sustained like mindset change about how wealth works at the school.
And it's a really cute sticker, FYI.
Well, I might try and connect a couple kind of big overarching points in here, and they might seem paradoxical or contradictory. But one of the things that's been really eye-opening is to try and change a system while working in a system. And for the most part, there's been a little bit of a philosophical coup that's happened in the last year or so, is that it's not about, I froze.
You're good on my end.
Sorry, I froze. My Comcast has been terrible. Can you hear me?
Here.
Yeah, you're good, Teddy.
Okay, I don't know where to jump off or where to go, but we at CC for the past, I guess, 4 years, I've been indoctrinated in a very right way to think about systems and only to think about systems. But in this last year, and to connect both Misbah's point and Filip's point, is that people really matter even if they exist within a system, and that if you're going to have to change a system or even work within a system, you need to find people who are like-minded like you to work within that system. And so instead of just kind of looking at this big overarching thing of politics is so scary and or the economic inequality that we have is unconquerable, looking for ways that are both pragmatic but both progressive to kind of further and push that system away into its own little paradigm shift. And so the ways that individuals can work in within systems and systems work within individuals has probably been the most enlightening part. So that'll be something that'll carry on for a long time.
I'm gonna hop in now if that's okay. But I guess for this question, the thing that sticks out the most to me is just like having community during this time as well. Like what Misbah was like pointing out a little bit. Like I just think with SOSS, I've just been able to like engage and discuss these topics and like the ways that we can like enact real change and things like that. And yeah, in a very real way, which has been really cool. And then especially with the survivor only space, just having a community and a support system of people who like understand where you're coming from and like are like non-judgmental, and just that like space has just been like so wonderful. And it's just been like such a cool way to like meet new people during the pandemic. And I'm just like very thankful for like community and community care and community healing within those spaces. But
I guess just to finish us off, I think a lot of what I've learned today is similar, or over the last years, similar to what Mary was saying, just in the importance of the communities we build through whatever organization we're part of, and how important those communities are to the people, at least like in my case, the special needs students, how important that community is to them, but then also how important that community becomes to anybody who's part of it. And I think this year I've just learned that, I guess, because of the pandemic, people have been so apart, and that establishing that community and having that community to build around during difficult times is especially important. And I guess that's been something that's been nice to discover this year, is how much communities can rally to support each other in times of need.
Thanks for sharing all. I wish there's the reactions. I just want to keep reacting with emojis. I've gotten so used to it. It's weird. For the sake of time, I want to just open it up to the audience in case the audience has any questions for you all in the last 3 minutes. Otherwise, I have a final question we can end on. But if anyone attending has a question, please feel free to unmute and ask now.
I have a question. I'm Kat Miller-Stevens. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm a professor in the economics and business department. But I'm wondering, I think about community engagement a lot. It's a big part of what I do and who I am as a person. And I'm curious to know your opinion, thinking about the CCE. I mean, that's the connection here and why we're all together. But do you think the campus as a whole is good at encouraging students to get involved in community engagement? Or is it more through the CCE that you have found these opportunities?
I'm just gonna jump right in. I think a lot of the work that, especially like with mutual aid, is found through students specifically. And I feel like the CCE doesn't get enough credit sometimes as to how much work they do in connecting us to all of these resources. And I feel like I'll die on this hill, but I feel like they should always get more hype than they ever get. And you're welcome, Sophia. But I think that's something like the CCE is integral in kind of connecting that bridge from the campus community to students specifically. And I feel like that is a link that we have not explored as much. And I feel like as the CCE grows, and hopefully it does, and I'll make sure it does, kind of happens. And otherwise, a lot of these efforts are student based, and they just need sometimes that institutional support. And that's where the CCE comes in, but a lot of them are grassroots organizations, especially currently, coming from mutual aid's perspective and Cal's perspective. And a lot of the work that we just want something, and so we all rally with it and go figure it out and solve the problem, create the solution, create a resource. And I think that's integral to how at least like my version of activism on CCE really works.
I'm not a panelist, but I work for the CCE. I don't know if I can give a little like bit of my thoughts. Being short and sweet. I think that I definitely agree so much with Misbah. Like the CCE for me at least has served as my connection to the Colorado Springs area. Like I arrived and I was like, oh, I really want to get involved with Colorado Springs and social change and activism. I don't know how. I really like that there's like a office that is kind of like dedicated to community engagement, because at the end of the day, they're there as like, I feel like a pool of resources. So you as a student like can form your club and be like advised by the CCE or form a co-op with the CCE. But that's what's awesome about it, is that it's just like a resource for students. It doesn't necessarily like dictate what you're going to do. It's just like there to help you out with like, you want to do social activism, what's an issue area you care about, and then like they'll provide resources for that. So that's what I find pretty awesome.
I agree with both of you, Anna and Misbah, and I think as an institution, I think we could do a little bit of a better job if we have something more all-encompassing. I think CCE has such integral role, but it shouldn't be just CCE's responsibility to make sure that CC is an active campus and that we are engaged in the community. I think many teachers do a very good job doing their final projects, something like research-based, local-based, and very like hands-on experience. But I think overall, it's really still not, I wouldn't say exception, but it's more depending on the individuals to bring on the opportunities in and tell people about what is happening, rather than something systemic in the curriculum or in our general CC culture. So I think it would be great if also as students could put something together that is more comprehensive on sharing the engagement opportunities, but also CC as an institution, maybe in the curriculum or some kind of events. And I wouldn't just leave it in CCE, even though CCE is doing an amazing job. I might be biased though, because I'm part of it.
Would anyone else like to respond? I know that we also have some non-CCE affiliated folks in the room, so please feel free to jump in if you do want to share like what office you work with or how you got connected. And I also realize we're a bit over time, but just want to leave space for you all to chime in too, because
So I'm not necessarily affiliated with this CCE, and I know we're over time, but I'll say this really quickly. It's my firm belief, and Mary and I just took a class together in which we read a book on this that redefines studying. And I would argue that the CCE is as integral to a liberal arts education as the library or Palmer Hall. And in the library, you're not going to become the most knowledgeable person in the room. That's going to happen in a classroom with other people. And so the CCE as an institution is really just going to act as a hub for other things, as to build off Filip's point, the CEC cannot be an end in and of itself. It has to be a means to an end. And in order for that to happen, there has to be a culture that's not institutionalized from the CEC, but is really grassroots from the students that then builds into the CCE as this hub. So that's my two cents.
Totally. Yeah. I love that point. I'm glad we're recording. I just want to like take this and put it on our website and be like, here's what the CCE should be and like generate. But yes, I totally love all of those points. And thank you all to our student panelists for joining today. Thank you attendees for joining this session and asking questions. If you all panelists feel comfortable putting your website of your organizations or your contact information, if people on this panel or attending this panel would like to follow up, that would be awesome. If not, no worries. Thanks for joining and have a great rest of your night. This does conclude CERN, so we appreciate all of you joining tonight. We will post the recordings on our YouTube page, though feel free to reach out to any CCE staff members if you want to find recordings later on after the event. So thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Nice to meet all of you.